Hello YouTube. Welcome to the first of several assembly videos for my ANYCUBIC Kossel Mini 3D printer. It's a generic Kossel Mini that I purchased from Aliexpress, and I go into more detail about that in my unboxing video. But anyways, in this part I would like to just have the frame assembled, get the basics out of the way. So let's start. So for our top pieces and our base pieces, one handy thing that they did is each bag of screws they've named for each section that they go to. So let's work on our base pieces where our stepper motors go. The first thing we have to do insert all our screws with our square nuts. Now I did skim through the entire manual beforehand just to make this process a little quicker, and I recommend that before you start. Now these little square nuts have a curved side to them, and I find it's easier to put them on the screw with the curved side facing the screw. This is going to be a little tricky. So they're all just loosely fitted so that I can work them into the extrusion later. There's one top. I already went ahead and did one bottom. I already went ahead and did one top. Let's do another top. Okay, so I have all my base pieces, all the screws and square nuts in. Our next step, I believe, is to install, at least for the top section, our rails. One at a time, like so. These inside ones are really tricky. Make sure that's tight. Straight. The nice thing about this style of printer is if I want to increase the build area someday down the road, all I have to do is replace the extrusion. I can replace these links this way to increase my build area this way, and I can replace the towers to increase my build area height-wise. another thing I would have to do if I did that is I would have to increase the size of the push rods that attach to the hot end, which would involve a little bit of math. Okay. So, I probably should have done this a little differently. Let's try this again. Okay. I probably should have put one on each arm separately, like it does show in the manual. Right here. I just didn't follow it, I rushed ahead. There we go. There we go. seem to want to line up. Slight gap. Okay, so there is our top frame piece. There's just a slight gap in a few of the corners. I don't know if that could be made out right there. And it seems to be similar on all three sides, so I don't think it'll be a big deal. Let me grab my tape measure just to check. sure everything's symmetrical. So we have 280 mil there. $280 mil there. $81. Let's double check everything. Just under 281. That's pretty close. Look within. Okay, in our top assembly now, we're going to install our flange bearings. And they come in, there's 6 pieces. What we do is we take an M3x20 screw, fold it up like this, slide it through this hole right here just a little bit, and the bearings, they look like this. And they're all the same. So we take one and we put it in with the flange side down, put the screw through a little bit, and then we take another one and we put it in with the flange side up. And then we take an M3 nut, put that in there. Get that started on the screw. Something to hold that spinning in there. While we tighten our screw. So just like that. Nice and tight. So we repeat that for all 3 sides. And make sure they spin freely. Okay, so we have our bottom pieces assembled and ready to be put together. One thing to note, there's a hole in the bottom of each corner piece for the wiring for the end stops to come down and through. When you're assembling these, make sure that you put your pieces on, your extrusion on in such a way that the hole is in the bottom for each one. And then we can dig into work our pieces into one another slowly. If you find they're tight, just loosen up the bolts just a little. Nope. This is where it's going to get tricky. And you try to slide all the assemblies in. There's our bottom assembly. Now I just have to tighten down these sets of screws here. Then our next step after this would to be install the stepper motors. And then after that we would install the bearings onto our stepper motors. So let me tighten these up and we'll move on to the next step. This next part's going to be a little tricky. Basically, 4 small screw holes in the base that match up with 4 small screw holes in the stepper motor. Might be a little easier if I had some needle nose pliers. Unfortunately, I've misplaced those. I cannot locate them at the moment. I am finding that some of the holes in the plastic frame pieces are a little snug and the screws tend to not want to go into them. This one is very snug. Put our stepper motor in with our cable connector facing up. So flip our assembly. Okay, so that's one stepper motor installed. you have to make sure that it's installed with the connector side up, and then these little holes in the bottom are at the bottom of the base. Now for okay, I ran into a little snag removing the stepper motors. It's not a big deal, but in the manual you can see how it shows to put the connector on the stepper motor facing up. However, upon looking at this a second time, these will actually come up, around, or through into the bed, which will create interference. So the best way to put these, for anybody else that's about to build one of these and you're looking through the manual, is take them and put them sideways in. That way your cables are coming out on the side and they're not interfering with the bed assembly. One good thing I found about this device, about this extrusion, particular extrusion with this one, is the flat nuts are small enough that if I have the assembly all together and I want to add something again later, for example, in the manual it tells me to, doesn't tell me to add these supports for the plate till much later on. Sometimes that could be a problem if I have to take this assembly apart and slide my nuts in, but however these, if you just hold them on a slight angle, they fall right into place. And that makes it very handy for if you want to make some upgrades or updates later on. So that's a nice feature. So for the moment I'm going to have to take these other two off, flip them around so that they're on their side in here so there's no interference, and then I can continue the rest of the assembly. So I have my tower pieces in my top assembly. All three stepper motors are installed. I still have to position my drive bearings. I've loosely set in one end stop. And as you see, I've run the wires down the center of the tower. And they come out at the bottom. To do that, I had to remove the fitting on the end and then reattach it once the wires were run through the base. I will do this for all three sides, and once that is done, I'll attach the base to the rest of the assembly.